This is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time! Presenting the champion of the world, Phil WamBam Benamino!
Yo, it's your boy. It's Phil WamBam Benamino, and it's another WamBam Wednesday, baby. You know, the show about ordinary people who've done extraordinary things. And today's no different. But before we get to our show, we got to first ask you to show some love, baby. Show us some love. I need you to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure you like it. Make sure you share it. Give us some comments. And don't forget to hit the alert button. Because today's show, you're going to love it. It's about streetcar racer. That's right. Is it Vin Diesel? No, Vin Diesel ain't here. Why would we want some bald-headed man here when we got a female racer? Sarah Montgomery's in the house. Sarah, how are you today?
I am good. How about you?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for being here. Absolutely. So, is it true you are a legitimate street racer?
I am a race car driver, not a street racer.
Okay.
There's a difference.
All right. What is the difference?
So I drive a Mazda 3 as a daily. Nothing super exciting, but nothing on the street. It is all strictly on a closed course racetrack is what I race, and a lot cooler cars than the Mazda 3.
So when you're racing these cars, first of all, how long is the course, like typically?
Every course is a little different, but typically around 2.5 to 4 miles long. So a lot of corners. It could be anywhere between 14 to 20 corners.
How fast you going?
Average speed, probably about 80 to 90 miles per hour. Top speed, maybe about 150 to 160, depending on the track.
Gotcha. Now, are you racing against other people or are you racing against a clock?
Oh, yeah. So racing against other people. So there's about 90 other cars on track with us at any given time, but they're separated into different classes. So I'm in the top class of the series. So there's 3 other classes. So there's probably 30 or in each class, 20 to 30 in each class, give or take. So I'll be racing against 20 to 30 people, but we're all going at the same time. So there's a lot of traffic. So you're constantly trying to get around Miatas or whatever it may be in a high horsepower car. So you try not to kill someone all while trying not to get killed at the same time.
So how long have you been racing? How long have you been doing this? Like, how did you get into racing?
Yeah. So I started racing when I was about 12 years old. My dad got free tickets to an IndyCar race, and when I was 10 years old, and I had no interest in going to an IndyCar race. I was like, this is dumb. We should be going to Disney World or something way more exciting.
Now, I got to ask you, are you an only child?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. So do you have a boy? You got any brothers, siblings?
No, I have a younger sister.
Oh, okay. So maybe he was trying to get you in what he likes. Does your dad like to race?
He enjoyed the sport, but it was just free tickets. That was it. So we just went, and I was enthralled by everything. I just wanted everything to do with it. It was one of Danica Patrick's first IndyCar races. And as a 10-year-old, I know it's like the cheesy story, but I was totally inspired by her. 100%. Like, I was that girl. Like,
I was inspired by her. I think of most women, but men too were inspired by her as well.
100%.
Totally. I mean, not to mention she's kind of hot. Not gonna lie, but that's a reality. But not only is she hot, she can drive a car pretty fast.
Yeah,
and control it.
Exactly.
Which isn't
She's
easy
pretty
to
good.
do.
A lot of people give her a lot of crap, but I think as a female, we have more eyes on us than the men do. And if we were to make any small mistake, people are going to dissect it. Whereas if a guy did that, they wouldn't. So that's just a whole different can of worms.
Give me an example. Give me an example of that. Like, because that's a kind of a cool point that you're bringing up. Like,
Catherine Legg is another female professional driver. She raced in last year's Indy 500. She had a small incident and it was just blown up like, oh, the girl crashed again. But they weren't talking about, you don't remember anyone else who crashed from that race, because no one talks about it.
Gotcha.
So it's just things like that we just are under a microscope all the time. Like if we say something wrong in an interview, the world will just pick it apart. Like, oh, look, the girl can't even get herself together, or, oh, she cried or whatever. She's just a girl, shouldn't be here or whatever.
Oh, wow.
That's just more things we have to deal with, honestly.
Well, you think with all this, these different genders and different sports and different things happening, that it would be more accepted and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess you probably don't really need a crossover, a girl to be a guy that was a girl become a guy as a car racer. Do you got any of those?
Exactly.
Do you got any transgender car racers in the in the field? Do you feel that's unfair? Let me ask you that.
No, because I'm racing against guys. I'm like one of the very few women still in racing. Now, mind you, it has grown tremendously since I started, like the male to female ratio, but still with the 90 cars there on a given weekend, let's say there's 180 drivers, I'd say maybe 6 to 10 of them are women.
Really?
It's still very small, but it's
a lot more.
It's a lot more than it used to be, which is so awesome. But
see, I feel like it's a disadvantage for guys to race with women, and the reason being is I wouldn't want to lose to a woman. Yeah. I'm just going to be honest, you know.
I get that, and a lot of people would say the same thing, but luckily, and I don't enjoy talking about myself all that much, or bragging about myself, I should say, but I have made a name for myself because of how well I drive, that people know I'm just one of the guys. So there's like, oh God, there's Sarah again. Like, damn it, they see me in the rear view. Yeah, exactly.
Here she comes.
So
what's your, like, you obviously there's a lot of different types of cars that race against you, which is like Porsches, or what are some of the main vehicles that you see out there that, the top 10 vehicles that are out there racing against you?
So there's pretty much every higher end car brand you can think of has some sort of race car. So like Ferrari, I'm not racing against Ferrari because that's a different class from what my series is, but I race an Audi R8. There's BMW M4s.
Audi R8, that's fun.
Yeah.
What a fun car that is, huh?
It is. It's cool. It's okay.
It's
no,
okay.
I'm kidding. Porsche GT3 Cup cars. There are Toyota Supras. There are just a bunch of different cars like that. Mercedes, and of course, I feel like I'm on the spot, so I can't.
Porsche, yeah, I know you've driven Porsches, haven't you?
I have driven Porsches.
I've actually seen a photo, I believe, with you in a Porsche and stuff.
Yeah.
What's your favorite vehicle to drive? Like,
I honestly would say I got to drive the brand new Porsche GT3 Cup car on slick racing tires, and that was the coolest feeling I have ever experienced.
Talk about that for a second. Talk about tires. Just how something so simple, on a vehicle can change the whole ride and what goes on.
So in the series, we race on street DOT tires. Like, that's just the rules. Because it's an 8-hour race, they don't want people on slick tires trying to kill themselves.
Wait a second, it's 8 hours.
8-hour race.
Full 8 hours, you're riding around the track.
Yep, exactly.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is.
That's a huge endurance.
Now, mind you, I have teammates, so I only run about 2 to 3 hours at a time, which is still long.
Sure.
So like they're helping pull you out of the car at the end of your stint because
how many teammates do you have?
I have 2 other female teammates this year.
Really?
Yeah.
So a total of 3 on the team. So between the 3 is you're going to do 8 hours.
Yep.
Now let me ask you real quick. Could you do an hour and then stop and get out and put somebody else in then go back in?
Yes. You
could. So you can go in multiple times. Once you come out, you're not done.
No.
You can go back in.
Nope, exactly. It would be dumb to do it that way because it only slows your pit stop down. So that's why we try to keep people in as much and long as possible. So like I'll do 2 to 3 hours at a time, but there's a max time limit. You cannot be in the car longer than 3 hours. So if you do 2 pit stops and your next pit stop would be 3 hours and 5 minutes, you'll get really penalized.
Gotcha.
So you have to get out about that 2.5 hour mark, and you're praying for yellow flags to do and have that pit stop so you can get out.
Have that opportunity.
But you can get in. You have to have an hour break, and then you can get back in.
Now, whose decision is it when you pit? Is it your decision? Is it the driver's decision?
No,
or
we
is there
have
somebody
a full
telling
crew.
you gotta?
So we have our full crew. We have an engineer, and we have basically a race logistics person who is telling us we need to pit now, or not pit now, and driver change now, whatever we need, new tires, because we do have to change our set of tires once during a race. So, people spend $1,200 on a new set of tires. We go through that in less than 4 hours.
Wow.
So, in our style of racing. But
Sure.
so they'll tell us when we need to change tires, if it's pouring rain outside, if we need to go onto a rain tire, because that's a totally separate tire than what we race on. So there are so many variables, and I am focused on driving and going as fast as I can and not crashing and not hitting other people, all while, there are other people doing their jobs.
I mean, obviously that's great to know, but you got to know something about cars. Like, I mean, to set them up and to build them and to do you know, I mean, how did you learn all this stuff?
Yeah.
Because I know like I said, certain tires, certain way things are set up, what you have in the back. You guys do NOS, any NOS or anything like that?
No.
Do anything? Oh, I'm just curious.
Not in this.
Not in this. All right.
No, they're pretty much stock built race cars from the manufacturer. So our Audi was built from Audi but never touched the showroom floor. So it was built from them as a race car. So all the cars I'm racing against are quote unquote called GT4 race cars, meaning that came from the manufacturer built as a race car.
What happens afterwards? Like, what happens to the car when the race is over and you've killed it? You know, like,
Yeah, after we put it through the paces.
yeah. I mean, how long does the life of a car last when you're driving it like that?
Well,
I mean, 8 hours is a long run.
a long
and
time.
How many races do you guys do a year?
about 8.
8 races?
Well, 8 weekends. So there's 2 8-hour races on each weekend. 8
Oh, wow.
hours Saturday, 8 hours Sunday.
Oh, so they're kicking for 16 hours.
yeah, it's a long time. So after like halfway through the season, we're replenishing everything, like fixing things as if it was the start of the season. So I'm off for the next 2 months because we have a short little break in between our section of races. So my team is taking the car back to California and doing a complete refresh on everything. New shocks, new brakes, new everything, new fluids everywhere. All the things are being completely refreshed so we don't have any dumb issues at another event.
Yeah. So what's cheating like? Is cheating a thing in race car driving?
For sure.
You know, tell me a little about, I mean, how do you cheat in racing besides run somebody off the road? I mean,
Yeah, well,
I mean,
that's
seriously.
not even cheating. That's not
cheating. That's just part of the game.
That's just exactly. I am proud to say I have never actually cheated, so I have won fair and square myself. But there are so many different ways you can do it. Now with these new cars and the turbos, you can play with the computers to adjust certain gears with the turbos, like to give a little more power in this gear, but they only check a certain gear. So that gear that they check is going to always be where it should be. And then the other gears they can adjust because they don't check those. Whereas with us and the Audi R8, we don't have a turbo. So our computer is just what it is, you know. There's definitely a lot of different ways that people can finagle.
Yeah.
How the
Anybody ever
business
get
works.
caught?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Really? All the time?
In fact,
They say if you're not cheating, you're not trying to
IndyCar,
win, right?
If you've been watching at all in racing, IndyCar is going through some scrutiny right now because Penske owns IndyCar, and Penske team just got in huge trouble. They penalized their engineer for 2 race weekends, including the Indy 500. He is not allowed to attend or be a part of the team. So there's cheating going on all over the place, but
So
can't
pretty
get
much
caught.
the cheating is based on what you're putting into the car.
Depends.
So
yeah.
there's rules there.
There are rules on everything.
Okay.
On everything.
What are some of the craziest rules that you see? Because like I know with like athletes and stuff, you know, with certain products and stuff that they ban, they have substances.
Yeah.
But a lot of times they change. Like even for the Olympics, they'll change
Yeah.
different things. We had Olympic star, track star, came on to our show here, and she was telling us about, you know, she got actually suspended and got trapped
Yeah.
into a ban because she was drinking, you know, like a coffee, basically.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it was a pill of ephedrine that but at that time it was illegal.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
stuff. So
No, we don't, I would say, at least in my series, we don't have any weird rules like that. Like I could be drinking the night before and go out and race. Not that I'm that type
So
of person.
they don't
but
test you personally.
No,
So you could be under the influence yourself.
you could.
You really could. Wow.
Yeah.
So you could drink whatever you want, put any PEDs in you, and go drive,
Exactly.
baby. Drive high,
Exactly.
drive fast.
Exactly.
Wow,
Which would
that's
be
crazy.
stupid to do.
Sure.
And I think most people are probably scared to even do that. But in some of the other series, they do random drug testing. I have never actually seen it being done, but it is in the rules that they can randomly drug test someone.
Yeah.
So
If there was one thing that you could cheat at, what would you do? Like, what do you think would benefit your type of racing?
I think that's a very deep question. No one's actually asked me that before.
Well, you're welcome. I got a couple.
Just, you know, the type of racing we do, there's all the different cars, right? So it's not the same car. No one's racing the same exact car, which makes everything a little bit different as far as what we call balance of performance. So, or balance of power. So nothing's ever going to be even. Like no one's car is going to ever weigh the same as my car's not going to weigh the same as a Toyota Supra. We're not going to have the same horsepower as them, but I wish there was some way to balance that out better so that way we could be more competitive against those lighter cars that have
That
turbos.
makes sense. No, that makes sense. That
Yeah.
totally makes sense. You don't think about that, the weight of everything.
So everything is totally different.
Yeah.
So it's hard for those people to make those rules because these cars are new and up and coming very quickly. So like 3 years ago, there were no GT4 cars in this series. And now it's all GT4 cars. So all these people who are running the series have no idea how to make everything level because they've never been put in the scenario. So it's all like throwing spaghetti on the wall, seeing what sticks as far as how to make make everything a level playing field.
Right. That's wild. I never really thought about weight being a factor, but
Yeah.
you're right. You're carrying a heavier load. It's either gonna go downhill faster, which
Yeah.
could help you, right? When
Exactly.
you're drafting and stuff, versus that. As far as your teammates go, you said, you have a team of 3. Now,
Mm-hmm.
do you also have multiple vehicles that you guys can use as well? Or is it just one car? Once that car's entered, that's it?
That's it.
So,
That's
boom,
it.
what about day 2? So, you want to switch cars day 2, you can't.
Nope.
That's the one.
Yep, that's the one. So, and that's pretty much universal. Some teams are fortunate enough to have all the money in the world. Racing is not cheap, people.
No.
It's not cheap. But some people do have a spare car, which is the same car as the one that they originally had. So, example, a couple races ago, it was pouring rain during practice, and one of the Supras went out, total loss it on the first lap of practice day. Race
Practice
weekend one,
Right.
like just stupid. And they had another car, they just pulled out the trailer. So it was like,
Back up.
yeah, nothing.
Plan
to
B,
them.
baby,
Or-
plan B,
I mean,
yeah.
it must be nice, but we don't have that option. So not that we're driving hesitantly at all around the track, but that's always in the back of your mind of this is all we've got.
Well, Audi R8 is not cheap either.
No,
So,
it's not.
Who pays for that?
So my team owner
Okay.
has invited me to race with her this year, and another.
She
female.
raced too?
Yep, she
Oh, she's a
does.
driver
She's
as
one
well?
of the co-drivers.
Oh, very cool.
Which is super cool. She's super down to earth. You'd really like her, and a really good driver.
What's her name?
Too.
Let's give her a shout out.
Erin Vogel.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
And she lives in California. That's her race car and her team that she just started this year. She's been in racing for a long time, and has just decided to say, screw it, I'm going to try and do this myself.
All
So
right. Now I'm going to get personal.
that's fine.
Can you beat her?
I love her so much to even answer that question.
If you're side by side,
but
one winner. Who's it going to be?
it would probably be me.
Hey, all right. Well, you're confident. I love that too.
I'd
have you on my team. I'd have you on my team.
Yeah.
So, obviously racing is extremely expensive, but you also have a lot of travel too because you're racing out of state, out of place. So what do you do with your team? Do you guys go there a week in advance? Do you practice? How many days do you get to practice on the track? Because I got to imagine every track's different.
Every track's
Or is it
totally
all
different.
every track a circle?
Nope, totally different. So every track, like I said earlier, is about 14 to 20 corners. A lot of elevation change, left, right.
Are you shifting
turns
down all the time? So
All
you're
the time.
constantly shifting.
Yep.
Boom. Okay.
Yep. So it's funny. People are like, how fast do you go? And you're like 160 miles per hour. And they're like, that's crazy. And I'm like, that's when I have my hands off the wheel relaxing. I am more stressed whenever I'm going 30 or 40 miles per hour pulling 2 Gs in the middle of a corner.
Right.
That's for us. That's like the adrenaline getting part. When you have your car sliding and you're like holding your core together, like keep your head up, get back to power, things like that. Whereas straightaway, it's like you're relaxing because
Right.
you need to get ready for those corners coming up that are going to pull so much out of you. So that's kind of a cool, unique aspect to everything. But
So, let's talk about that for a second. As you're driving and you're approaching corners and stuff, how fast do you go around these corners? Like, what do you try to get to, and where do you want to? I mean, there's got to be a midline where you try to stay within a certain
Yeah.
range. What is it like? What have you found that works for you?
there's no speed because, like you said, every track is different. Every corner is different. Some are way slower than others. Some corners are way faster than others. The biggest thing is having that car on edge 100% of the time. That's when if you feel like you're about to crash and burn, you're doing it right.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when you feel that back end start to slide just a little bit of the car, you're doing it right. If you feel like, man, I can get through that corner too easily, you're going too slow. So there's no...
Kids, if you're listening to this, she's not talking about on the streets, okay?
Yes.
This is on a track. This
Yeah.
woman knows what she's doing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I've done this before. So.
So, when did you first drive a car? I mean, were you 15, 16, or did you do it when you were younger?
Well, my dad, actually, I should take this back. Santa brought me a Barbie Jeep when I was really young.
Yeah.
And that was my first car.
There
I
you go.
literally drove the wheels off of that thing. Had my parents, back in the day, there's no internet, so you can't just find parts and pieces for a Barbie Jeep. But I drove the plastic wheels off of that. So they are like going to random shops in Lafayette, Louisiana, trying to find more plastic Barbie Jeep wheels because I kept just running them dry,
Right.
where they were slick. So the Barbie Jeep was my first car.
Wow,
Quite
that's
literally.
wild. I actually got my granddaughter, Capri, got her first baby. She's not even 1 year old yet. She got a
Heck
Barbie
yeah.
Jeep too. Maybe she'll be a
Exactly.
driver like you. Who knows?
Exactly. And it's so I'm so mad because now they have the coolest Barbie Jeep cars. They have like Ferraris. You can get like, you know, SUV Land Rovers or whatever.
Yes,
it's like, golly, they just
and the
have
remote
the
controls too. So you can put the baby in there and you just zip, 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 and it takes them off.
So different now, but yeah, exactly.
So now, did you do any go-kart racing too? Did you have any of those? Okay.
Yep. So after the IndyCar race, I fell in love with cars and I just wanted everything to do with it and begged my parents for about two years basically to get me involved in racing somehow. I brought them my piggy bank and was like, please help me do this. And my mom was like, hell no, we're not doing that. We're going to do ballerina stuff instead, whatever, something safer. My dad was like, I'm not telling her no anymore. So they caved and bought me my first dirt oval go-kart for my birthday when I was about 12 years old. And we started dirt oval go-karting.
Really?
Yep. Before I had a driver's license. And
where was the first place you actually raced?
So we raced at a place called Acadiana Speedway, which is about 20 minutes from our house. And the first race, we get into the driver's meeting and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. You know, this is gonna be fun. And they told us the track was closing down.
Oh yeah.
So my dad's like, well, now what? You know? And he decides to just buy the track.
Oh, really? So
the whole thing.
Daddy,
so,
he stepped up.
Yeah,
Daddy Warbucks stepped up.
Exactly. But the cool thing was, and as more of an adult now than I was back then.
That sounds like something I'd do. I'm just kind of cracking up myself.
Yeah, exactly.
If my granddaughter was like, Papa, I want to, we'll just buy the track.
Yeah, we'll just buy the track. But it was cool for him seeing how many families were together. You know, all these kids with these adults all together, all these different families, hundreds of families. He's like, I don't want to see this completely shut down because that's when they would get together and be family. And same with us. My dad one year and I went to 30 racetracks around the country traveling. And he's like, what else would we have done if you weren't racing? Like, would we be this close without it? So his mindset back then was like, I don't want to see this fall apart for families. So, I mean, he did a great job with it. And I raced at that track for a long time, won a few championships, and then slowly got into car racing when I was about 15 years old.
Yeah. Do you remember your first race ever, though? Even in the go-kart? Do you remember the first race where you're actually competing against other people? What was that like? Were you nervous? Did you crash? I mean, how'd you place? What'd you do?
I was definitely nervous because I had no idea what I was doing. And you're like, so back up a little bit. The very first race my dad and I went and watched, I found this track and I was like, Dad, let's go watch a race. So we go to watch a race and we were the only ones in the grandstands. And all of a sudden this go-kart comes, crashes and burns right in front of us. The guy goes barrel rolling out of the cart. He gets up, he's holding his shoulder and you can see him trying to whip it back into his, into shape. Turns out he broke his collarbone. His name was Squirrel. And my dad was like, oh, thank God. We dodged that bullet. She's not going to want to do this anymore. But no, that fueled my fire even more.
Really?
So when my first race, I get onto this same exact track, that I was just watching. And it was an oval. So only left-hand turns. Instead of turning left, I turned right into one corner and basically total lost it in the wall. This little go-kart, whatever. It was wild, but here we are now.
Hey, folks, this is WamBam at WamBams Podcast. I want to take a moment to thank our major sponsor, Cost Plus Processing, the leader in merchant processing. If you're a business owner and you're accepting credit cards or need to accept credit cards, reach out to Cost Plus Processing at 1-855-391-9190. That's 1-855-391-9190. And find out why they are the future in merchant processing. Now back to the show. So, you know what, though, thinking about that, I bet that actually helped you because what a lot of people don't realize, like when you get in a wreck and you realize, I'm okay. I'm alive. It didn't hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're not afraid anymore.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, and I relate a lot of things with football. These kids, the first time when they put football pads on and their helmets, and they're afraid of hitting somebody because they're afraid of how it's going to feel and what's going to happen. It's like, and as soon as they get hit and get knocked down, they realize, wait, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Then it's different, right? The cars are made to take an impact.
Yeah.
They're designed specifically for those types of things.
Yeah, and with go-karting, there's no seatbelt in the cart that I had because you want to fly out if you needed to. Luckily, I never did, but yeah, it was very interesting. And my parents had me in so much protective gear. Like, you'd have sworn I was in bubble wrap. I was the one kid walking around like this, couldn't
That's
move.
funny.
You know, had my rib protector on, neck brace, obviously helmet, things like that.
I was gonna say, Mom must have been a wrack, man.
Oh, yeah,
She
she was.
probably did. I mean, her little ballerina is
Oh, yeah.
driving around.
Gone.
Now driving around. So
Yeah.
now we step up. Let's talk about Mom's feelings when you're, now all of a sudden you're going to drive 150 miles
Yeah.
an hour
Yeah.
on an actual street car.
Yeah.
Type of thing. What were those emotions like?
Well, nothing's changed. I will say that. So, when I was racing in Spec Miatas, there was a corner you could get to at this one track where you just fly by at 120 miles per hour. And she didn't always come to every race because it made her nervous, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, she supports me 100%, but she was nervous. So apparently when I was in the car and drove by, she grabbed my dad's arms and held on so hard her fingernails went through his skin and he was bleeding. She was like, oh my God, like, this is unacceptable. And now she knows that she has no say anymore. And she just sits in one of the slower corners and just like, oh, look at her go,
Right.
But yeah.
So let's talk about your first win.
Yeah.
Your first trophy, your first checkered flag. Do you remember that moment, that day? And what was it like?
Honestly, I don't know if I specifically remember that.
Really?
Because I think I had just gotten so close and so close to it. At least in go-karting, because that was a long time ago, relatively. Right. But I do remember one time in, more professional level racing in the Mazda MX-5 Cup Series, which is a professional racing series. We were racing on IndyCar weekend with IndyCar. We were one of their opening races. So there was a big crowd, big field, everything like that.
That'd been cool. Was Danica there?
Super cool. No, she wasn't.
raise
She
that?
wasn't
Or
racing
you were you?
anymore.
Okay.
This was in 2016 or 2017.
Gotcha.
So not actually, I kid you not.
No, 'cause
sorry,
she-
hang on. This was 2019 this happened.
Okay.
2019. So it wasn't too long
No,
ago.
it wasn't too long ago.
But I became the first female to ever podium in that series.
Wow,
Which was
congrats.
super cool. And I still hold that honor to this day. But that feeling, I will never forget that feeling.
Yeah.
I was a mess. I was bawling, crying, so excited. Like, just because the whole year, that was my goal, to be that person. And when I got out of the car, Sarah Fisher, IndyCar driver, and Max Pappas, IndyCar driver, were there to congratulate me. And I was like, that is so damn
That's
cool.
great. Now, were they idols you? Like, who did you idol besides Danica growing up?
Honestly, I had a different idol every racing series I was in. So like in that MX-5 Cup, I looked up to my team owner, John Dean, because he was so good. You're just like, what are you doing? How are you doing that? But like every series, I'm looking up to someone different, if that makes sense. But
Sure.
but yeah, I obviously really knew who Sarah Fisher was, because another female, and Max Pappas is a big name too. So just the honor of having them there was really cool.
Right. So what's it like preparing for stuff like that? I mean, obviously a lot of hours going to practice. What's a practice week and what do you have to do? I mean, obviously you got to be
Yeah.
physically fit too. Like,
Yep.
what's your training regimen? What'd you do?
So there's a lot to that question. So, like any other sport, you can at least go out and throw a football, practice things like that. But in racing, it costs tens of thousands of dollars to do that.
Or just a couple pink tickets.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Pink slips, exactly. But yeah, so we're lucky on race weekends because you want to practice that race because of that race or that track because you're there that race weekend.
Sure.
Sometimes they open up the track one day early for us to get there early and practice. So sometimes we'll do that, which is super helpful and beneficial. And then physically, I mean, and that's pretty much the only practice we get all year is that one
day before.
Day before.
If you're lucky to get there in time.
Exactly. So, which
I mean, I
seems
can
kinda
imagine you have
silly,
another
but-
job too.
Yeah.
If it's not paying, it's expensive hobby, obviously
Exactly.
at this point,
Exactly.
unless you get the right sponsors.
Yep, exactly. It's all sponsors for me. As much as I love my family, I don't come from a family that's super wealthy and can afford any of this. It's been my dad.
Wait
and I,
a second, Daddy bought you a track.
Yeah, well,
And a
that's
pink
whole,
Jeep, a
it
Barbie
was-
Jeep.
Yeah,
Now he
exactly.
started the race.
Exactly. So yeah, we don't have that second car waiting for us to be rolled out, But it's honestly made me who I am today. Like I'm so much more grateful and appreciative of opportunities because I've worked my ass off for it, and just like everyone, my dad has helped me so much too, and my mom too, but my dad's really been there helping me knocking on doors trying to make this work. But any slight mental fatigue, you're gonna do something that's really dangerous. So for me, it has to be I have to be mentally strong in a race car, whether I'm scared to death or not. Like, you just have to get over it because you can kill yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really...
It's been done. Unfortunately,
yeah,
it's been
for
done.
sure.
Yeah.
It's a lot safer than it used to be, but you get in a car knowing that can always be a risk. And then physically too, I mean, I have a broken foot for last race weekend, which is a whole nother thing.
Really?
But you make it work.
So, talk about you broke a foot. How did that happen?
I wish there was a good story. There's really not. I fell off my couch when my leg was asleep. I didn't know it had fallen asleep, but
Couldn't say you crashed in the corner. You flew out, did a somersault.
I know. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No. Not even a cool story. But I was in the emergency room, so it happened 2 Sundays ago, which was 4 days before I was leaving for my race. And I was a mess that day. I was like frustrated because I'm like, how am I supposed to race now? And I'm in the emergency room, literally bargaining with the emergency room doctor, like, don't tell me no, because I'm going to do it anyway. I was like, don't put a boot on me. I'm going to cut it off and just put a shoe on. I'm going to race this weekend. And she was like, oh God, you're stubborn. And I was like, I know. I was like, I'm going to race this weekend. So we made it work. But yeah, and joke's on her. There was a piece in the car. I could actually prop my leg up the whole time in the car. And I was like, look at me driving at 160 miles per hour with my leg propped up.
That's funny. That's funny. So get back into, how you prepared and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, do you watch film at, a race car driver? Do you watch yourself? Like, what do you find, it's important, and what do you look for?
Yeah. So, in this series, I've been in this series about 5-ish years now. And I've set pole position many times at a lot of these racetracks in previous years.
Just say it. I'm a badass.
Yeah,
Just say it. I'm a badass.
I literally physically couldn't, but,
I'll say it for you. She's a badass.
Exactly. So I'll go back and watch those videos. So we have live in car during a race. So if my dad's not able to make it, he can just pull up our YouTube stream and watch our video of us literally live, which is cool. So there's a camera pointing on me so he can tell who's the driver, and then out the front and a little one out the rear. So you can see if we get hit from behind or whatever, and you can see where we are on the track. Mm-hmm. So I will go back to those previous years and watch those videos, like where exactly I know these tracks and I've been to these tracks many a time. So I know like relatively where to brake, things like that. So in these cars, that's what you're finding the finesse of. There's, some markers and you're like, okay, right past the 300 marker, I'm braking for a deep breath in, then I slam on the brakes and then you turn in. So
you do that all at once. Like it's brake, breath.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Brake, turn, lift off the brake, try not to die, get back to power and go for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know the tracks well enough to know what corner comes next, left, right, straight, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I still have to prepare myself because it's a year in between each time I go to that specific track. So you don't remember exactly every single little brake zone, what corner, what gear you're in, because you have to think about gearing too. So as soon as you're on those heavy brakes, you're getting that downshift done to then slowly release the brake pedal to then get back to power. So you just go back and learn that stuff. They also, a lot of my teammates do iRacing. So it's basically simulator racing before, but to be honest,
that's a big deal now, right?
It kills my confidence because I'll crash and I'll be like, oh my God, that's like a bad crash. And I'm like, I don't want to do that in real life, but I have no feel in a simulator. So it's just driving from watching, and that's not how I grew up driving. I grew up from like feeling the seat of my pants, as we call it, like how I can feel this car rotating slightly if I'm pushing too hard. But in a simulator, you can't get that feeling. So it's a little more tricky for me. I don't like it, but
well, it sounds like you know your weaknesses and know what you need.
Yeah, I just need to watch video. Couple laps is really all I need, but I'll watch more if I need to, and then just go out there and just feel the car. So
tell me about the races. You said it's about 8 races and stuff. Is it a certain period of time throughout the year, or is it every month? How is that?
It's typically about every month, once a month-ish. There's eight race weekends. So, obviously there's 12 months in the year. Right now we have a month or 2 break in between. So it's all kind of random.
So what are you doing between a break? Like right now, you got a 2-month break.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Are you preparing? Are you out racing still? Are you still driving your car around the tracks?
No, the car is being fully redone right now. So that's off limits until the next race.
So you don't even know what that's going to feel like until you get back in it.
It's going to feel better.
Yeah. You're hopeful.
It's going to be better because we're doing a lot of setup So even though I'm not in the car, we have a conversation with an engineer coming up this week to try and make the car better for next race weekend, which is at the end of June. So, hey, should we buy these shocks or these springs, or what sort of adjustments can we get, different sway bars to make this car softer, whatever. Talking to someone who might know a little bit about the car than I do, even though I can give you a basic guideline of, hey, this needs to be adjusted, whatever, but the engineers know a lot more in depth of what could be better and how to make the car faster.
Sure. Do you ever have any conflict with that, with other drivers and with your pit crew and stuff, where you're like, oh, it's the driver, no, it's the car's not set up right, and then you want to set up a certain way, but the second driver might want to set up a different way?
Yeah, so that's the team will always listen to what the drivers have to say. The biggest thing is like teammates and I maybe disagreeing on the setup, and it's so little, like I can deal with whatever and they can too, but it's who's already fastest and who's going to be faster with the way their setup is, if that makes sense. And then the other person just kind of has to deal with it or find a happy medium, which is typically what we wind up doing, because we don't want to be stuck in a car for 3 hours completely miserable. So like, oh, this sucks, it's not turning, whatever, things like that. But it's really fascinating for people who've never been in a proper race car pushing the car super fast. But there's times when the car won't turn in, and it doesn't make sense, because when you're on a street, you can turn, the car will always turn. But when you have the car on the absolute limit and you try to get that car to turn in, it will sometimes just go straight, and you can't even see it from the outside, and you wouldn't even notice if you were sitting in the passenger seat. But there are so many things you can adjust to make a car drive better. Yeah. Or worse.
Right. So, that's true. Do you ever have, a strategy with your team? Like who goes first, who goes second, who goes third? Like, is the third leg like your best driver, or is it different based on other teams and where they're putting their drivers?
Yep.
Like where's the chess match?
Always go in with a strategy, and we never use it.
Okay, so there is no strategy.
You always have a strategy, but something always changes. It either pours down raining, and then there's now red flags, which the whole race has to stop. So this past race weekend, 2 weeks ago, I was in the car during a red flag, and I literally sat on the track dead stop with the car turned off, belts loosened, just like taking a nap, chilling basically on the track for an hour. And so that changed everything. That changed the drive time, as far as, then they still had to watch me, but I still got less physically driving time because I'm in the car for an hour sitting there doing nothing. The tires now will last longer. Now fuel is being consumed at a different rate because it's been sitting there for an hour. So they're doing all their calculations. So there is a strategy, but it's always going to change because nothing ever goes to plan. Right. So, but typically you are supposed to start in our series, the driver who set the fastest qualifying lap. So typically I always start.
Okay. So the fastest one typically you want starting.
Always starting, because the series also requires it. Now I'll do say 2.5 hours, and the next driver gets in for maybe another 2.5 hours. That's 5 hours.
Well, okay. So let me reverse that real quick. So I'm trying to understand. So the series requires, if you do it's a practice lap, right? Basically.
Practice and qualifying are the same thing.
Okay. Yep. So when you do that, the fastest person has to start the race.
Correct.
So if you already know you're the fastest person, but we don't really want you to start the race, do you ever kind of throw that a little bit and let your second driver be the fastest one so they can start the race?
You could do that, but my co-drivers always want me to start.
Okay.
Because I'm
so you kind of really already know what you're going to. So maybe they're throwing it. Maybe they're making you faster too because they want you to start.
Exactly. They just, for whatever reason, don't feel comfortable starting. I love starting. Is such
rush,
a
ready.
Bull rush, like it just like everything all at once. They drop the green flag, you're surrounded by 30 other cars and you're all trying to get to the front. But you also don't want to do anything dumb because you have 8 hours to try and get there.
Right.
But I love starting a race.
That's awesome.
Even though I'm scared to death and nervous the whole time and like, don't talk to me, but I just love it.
So having that kind of adrenaline, because I can already see you're an adrenaline junkie. You love the pressure.
Yeah.
Right. What does that do to you on the 8th hour when you can't be inside the car?
Yeah.
And maybe your teammate's not doing all the things that you can do because you're already out there for 3 hours doing your thing. And you want to just take over. Is
Yeah.
that something you can do or no?
Totally.
Do you ever call in and be like, hey, put me in?
No. So the team usually makes that decision, but if that is the case, then yes, they'd probably do something like that. The team I was on a few years ago, we had that exact scenario, but all of my teammates were fast. And so I knew that the last hour we had a fast guy in the car, and I was just literally on pit lane with the headset pacing because I couldn't handle it. We were second place, and we were right behind P1 after 8 hours, which is pretty impressive if you really think about it. All the pit stops, we have to do 7 or 8 pit stops, and we wind up right next to each other on the last hour.
How many pit stops do you have to make?
You don't have
What's
to
required?
make any. There's no requirement.
There's none at all, not even one.
No, because you have to because of fuel.
Fuel, yeah.
And we have to fuel up about every hour.
Oh, wow.
And that's about every car.
Gotcha.
How it works. So, and we can only have a certain size fuel tank.
So let's talk about that. You're coming in and make pits, the pit stops. So obviously it's very strategic, and you have to be very quick, and there is a skill to that.
Yeah.
What are some of the dynamics of that whole process?
Well, as soon as you cross the cones and to get into pit lane, you cannot be going faster than 35 miles per hour, or they'll give you a lap penalty, which is impossible to come back from. So you can't speed. And as a driver, when I hit pit lane, I am loosening my belts if I'm doing a driver change, getting the seat pushed all the way back, getting the steering wheel pushed all the way in and up, because I know it's a smaller driver getting in after me, shorter, but she's got this massive seat insert because she's a lot more narrow than me too. So it's a lot of work. So as soon as they're yelling at me on the radio, they've got what we call a lollipop out for me to come in and hit exactly on the dot.
Right.
Because there's 90 cars that could be pitting at the same time. You have to be spot on. And you can't speed, and you can't run over the people that are in pit lane.
Well, you can, just wouldn't be very good.
Yeah, well,
Wouldn't be a
your
good
people
result.
giving you
Yeah.
the penalties, so you better not.
Yeah.
So you pull in immediately. You have to shut the car off so they can start fueling, or else you'll get penalized. Your visor has to be down on your helmet, or else you'll get penalized. And at that point, so I've done all that, unbuckle the belts, put the belts on the magnets, and then I am pulling myself out of the car after 3 hours. After I am fried.
Man, that's got to be hard to remember. What if you got to pee? What if you got to go to the bathroom real quick? You got to go.
I have never done it.
You
but
accidentally
can
pull your
pee on
visor up.
yourself.
You're going to get fined?
Yes.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yep, you'll get penalized because it's a safety hazard. If that car were to blow up in flames and you don't have your visor down, like, it has happened.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in our series, it has happened. In the past couple of years, I think it's happened twice. But yeah, if you gotta go, you gotta go. Yeah. I have never done it. I can't physically make myself do it, but but I'm on a relaxed enough team to be like, I can't do another stint because I'm about to pee on myself. And they're like, okay, whatever, we'll get you in. And then
gotcha. So they pull you in. So nobody's ever just kind of went, like, they're an hour in, like, I got to go, but I'm going to have to go.
But really, it's rare. Yeah. But it has happened.
Hey, folks, this is WamBam at WamBams Podcast. I just wanted to let you know that we've launched our website and merchandise is now available to you. That's right. We have hats. We have T-shirts. We have hoodies. The hoodies have been going off the shelf already. The Stay Positive hoodies. That's right. Stay positive, folks, and keep tested negative. As you know, go to our website at www.wambamspodcast.com. That's www.wambamspodcast.com. Now back to our show. So let's talk about the obvious. Fighting and getting into controversy with other teammates and other people and stuff.
Yeah.
You and I both know there's obviously it's a race. Mm-hmm. It's a race to the end. People are rubbing, people are bumping. You're female. Do some guys take advantage of that? Do they try to intimidate you at all? Has it ever created any? Have you ever had any issues with those types of things?
I would say when I first started racing, yes. In go-karting, I remember a gentleman tapping me on the shoulder and saying, hey, that the driver behind you is going to give you a little tap and move you out the way, so just let them by. And I was so new, I didn't even know what that meant. But that guy was literally telling me to move for his son to go around me. Like, wow. If I had only known that now, I swear this business has made me a lot tougher. And I am straight to the point. I will tell you how I feel, which I have before. But Luckily, I race in a series that is a no contact series. And if you have contact with someone, they will penalize you for like two lap penalty instantly. They don't care what happened. So there is you don't want to touch a soul in your car in our race, because you'll get in big trouble for it. Which is good, because that's less carnage, less money that you have to spend on damage, because people aren't doing dumb things, because we're all kind of in the same boat. Like,
right.
We can't just go spend $250,000 on a brand new car. Like,
right.
That's just not easy for anyone.
Sure.
We're lucky to be there in the first place. So that has definitely
but something's got to act. I mean, something's happened though. Like you said, you turn that corner, you can't stop the wheels, or it's not set up right. You're sliding, it gets away from you.
There's I got plowed into by a guy a couple races ago. I still have yet to hear an apology from him, and I called him out on my social media.
Yeah.
I said I didn't call him.
Who was it?
I didn't say my name, but everyone who was there knew who it was, so he can just. But there was a sassy face of me looking like this, and I said, still waiting on that guy to walk up to apologize to me, but I know he won't. Or
what was his name?
His name is Tom.
Tom who?
We have a long history, so that's just a whole can of worms.
No, let's get into the can of worms. We're gonna call Tom out right now.
Yeah, exactly.
What happened with Tom? So this is something that's kind of sounds like a little grudge there going on.
It's just a long story. I don't even think he knows it exists on my end, but I'm a redhead and I'm a Taurus, right? So like, I hold a grudge against everything. If you do me wrong once, I will never forget it. But I might be nice to you and play it off, but I won't forget it. Like, I just in that type of way. But I won't play super nice to you on the track. I'll make you work for that pass if that's what you're going for. But if it's a friend and I can tell they're faster, I'm like, yeah, go ahead, whatever, it's fine. It just is what it is. There's no point. I mean, you should always make friends with everyone in the paddock, because you never know who could help you out, even if you're on the same team or not.
Right, that's true. So, is there any of that? I want to say gentlemen's, but a gentle girl, I guess I should call. Where there are rules where if somebody is riding you a little tight, just to kind of let them go by. Is there rules like that? Like, I know in golf, if you're playing slow, you kind of wave somebody through.
Yeah, it's kind of the same way. Like,
is it? Or is it like,
but
no,
there's a
get
lot
around
of ego
me, bitch?
too. Yeah, there's a lot of that too. So for me, like, if it's really obvious that there's cars behind me and we're fighting against each other, now mind you, the car I'm in this year is struggling a lot. It's very obvious that these cars are way faster than me. So it's like, why would I ruin their race when they're fighting some guy behind them instead of just letting them go? For me, it's like puts the car more at risk for no reason whenever I know that they're just going to drive off. And sure enough, that's what happens. So at that point, it's just not worth it. Like, so
you have scenarios where you're like, listen, this car can't win
It's not
today.
worth it. No, just go ahead. And
I got you.
And some people don't.
Do you ever pit it then? Do you just pit the car? And
no, I will keep going. But some people do have too much pride to do that, which is dumb, but they're out there to race and have fun too. But I'm like, how is this fun for you when you're just holding everyone up? Like, whatever. But that's a whole thing itself. But I would say, even me, you asked me this earlier and I didn't answer it. I have gotten so much more respect from everyone because of how well I do in a car. Like, if it was anyone else, same scenario, and they didn't drive as well, they'd just be like, ugh, whatever, just she's out there. But since I have made a name for myself, I have gotten a lot more respect from those people, and like, she's out here to race and she's not playing around, so they treat me nice,
right?
And they know I have red hair, so exactly.
So talking about the car, speed, fast, all that stuff is important. What is the fastest car you've ever driven? Or should I say your favorite car? Like, you've won some races, you won some events. So do you have a favorite over one car over the other? Like, you're clearly not too happy with the car you're in right now. I can just tell.
I like the car, but the series with the balance of performance really kills us. It's really tricky because our car is new. So they're trying to figure out where it fits in with all of that competition, if that makes sense. I have not driven this car in the series I'm in now, but that Porsche GT3 Cup car will always be my most favorite car I've ever driven. I want more.
You want more?
I want more.
So we got to go to Porsche. We got to get you a sponsor right there. They got to, put out there and provide that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the best you've ever placed? Tell the viewers a little bit about some of your history with your podiums.
Yeah. So I had those 4 podiums that one year, being the first female to ever podium. And then as soon as I podiumed, I stayed on it the rest of the year, which was like really the coolest thing I think I've ever done. I think it's personally, I think it's cooler for me to have done that than it is some of the races I have won. That was cool, but to really put my stamp on history is, I think, way cooler than anything else.
Yeah,
so
that's cool. That's cool. Now, fact also, your team is all females, correct?
My drivers.
Your drivers are all
The
all
drivers
females.
are all females.
So,
correct.
but you can mix them up though. If you chose to have a couple guys on the team, you could do that.
I'm normally usually the only female in my car. Normally it is all men. So this is new for me,
This
and
is
it's kind of cool.
Does people realize that? Like you guys come out with, you guys got pink suits on and
Hell
stuff?
no,
People
I ain't
know or
wearing
no?
pink.
No. Tell the story, because you were telling me earlier. Tell the viewers about when you first were driving, what people thought you were.
Yeah, so there was my dad got this go-kart for me to practice in, and we were in a big open field back at home in Louisiana, and I was, it was close to a very popular, important intersection, and there were cars driving by, and this car pulls in, and I'm, in this go-kart doing a course, and this guy pulls up in his truck and is talking to my dad, and, I'm still doing my thing, practicing. My dad waves me over, and I take my helmet off and I can see the guy's face. And I was still young. I was, I don't know, like 14 at the time, 13 or 14 at the time. And I see this guy's face like, oh my God. Turns out the gentleman had told my dad when he first drove up, man, your son is going fast out there. Because we took our hair in to our suit because we don't want our hair to get stuck in a go-kart in like the brakes in the back, which it'd be stupid to do that. So you tuck your hair in. So he had no idea.
Right.
He's like, oh, look, your son going super fast. And my dad's like, yeah, he's going great. So my dad pulls me back, and then that's, when I took the helmet off, he was like, oh my God, that's a girl. What the heck? Yeah.
Shoot, I messed up there.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me ask you, what's it like after you get done racing? You're out there, you're competing, you're racing, you waited all month to get in the car to do your part, and now you're on the real road. You're on Georgia 400, going down the road. Like, do you got the itch? Like, how do you drive? Are you always driving fast? I mean, tell me what you do.
I get my adrenaline out on the racetrack. And people think I'm crazy, but I see how fast and how bad things can go wrong on a racetrack. And I know it's even worse in real life because you're not wearing all the protective gear that we wear. There's none of that really besides a seatbelt. Cool. Yeah. But I've wrecked a car at 160 miles per hour and it's not fun. And that was with all my safety gear on. And I'm still lucky to say I'm here. But I know how fast things can go wrong. So yes, even though I am normally going with the faster flow of traffic, I'm not going to be the one pulling them, if that makes sense.
Right, sure.
So someone else can get the ticket.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Not me.
Well, I think so many, kids today and the viewers, and this is why I'm asking and kind of putting it out there. It's really for the viewers to realize that accidents happen. Oh, yeah. Right? And like you said, in a racing environment, you're prepared for the accident. Yep. You have a suit on if there's a fire. You have you got roll bars. You got things that are, they're set up just in case. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're on the road and you're just driving down the road, anything can happen. And it doesn't even have to be you that has the fault.
And there's distractions on the real road, right? So in the race car, I know no one's texting and driving next to me, even though they might not be smart and be doing dumb decisions anyway. I know they're at least paying attention. Right. Whereas on the regular road, we could be going 80, 85 down 400, and they could be totally not even paying attention to what's going around them. There could be a tire floating in the air and they never even saw it. Yeah. So I am proud of myself for always pretty much paying attention, but looking so far ahead. Like if I see things going on real bad up there, I'm at least smart enough to have noticed that and slow it down before anything happens.
That's great. What about electric cars? You see Tesla out there?
Yeah.
Are they out there racing as well?
No, they're not. Because they would never make it.
You don't think?
No.
Because the 8 hours.
8 hours.
Yeah, you got to charge them. You can't charge. That's true. That's true. But I know electric cars are coming into racing quite a bit now.
Yeah.
You're hearing more and more about it.
A little bit.
Bobby Lutz, who actually started a Richard Petty Racing School, was on our podcast not too long ago, and he was telling us about that, and kind of really feels like that's where the future is going to be because them suckers are fast and they're quick. And they're quick.
I hope not.
And everybody wants to hear that thunder. Hear the rumble.
Yeah, exactly. That's the joy of car racing. Like just getting in these cars that have like such a good exhaust that's not legal on the road. And it just sounds so good when you're in there and you're buckled in and you can't breathe. And you're just like, oh my God, it sounds so good. Like that's the fun part about it.
Yeah, you're right. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to tell the viewers about racing that we wouldn't know? You know, anything that's a little behind the scenes, behind the facts that you
I'd
probably
say
didn't know.
My racing gear is pretty interesting. Like, even though you might see like a race car driver wearing this, there's a lot more to it than what you just see on the screen. So underneath that big suit that you see us wear, we're wearing more fire resistant clothing. So that's, you know, something that we could get fined for. If they randomly walk up to you and pull your sock out and see that it's not a fire resistant sock, you know, approved and rated by this specific company, you'll get fined. Wow. So all the way from your socks to my underwear to my bra, everything is fully Nomex, fully fire resistant. Our shoes are fully fire resistant. Our gloves, obviously the suit is like 3 layers of that clothing. So it's hot. Yeah. It gets really hot in these cars. You know, there's no air conditioning. So in this cockpit, there's no padding like you would have in a normal car, no carpet. It gets blazing hot, like 120 in the car. And then you have all this gear on top of that. And we have that balaclava, like a ski mask that's holding your hair in. Mm-hmm. And then your helmet and your Hans device. It's a lot.
You know, what you're saying is absolutely 100% correct. And actually, I got an opportunity to drive at the Richard Petty Racing School, and it's uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. Is. I was uncomfortable I know I'm a big guy anyways, you know, trying to lose some weight and stuff, but it really is not a really comfy fit. Like, it's not like you get a cushion seat. Either. You know, you're not getting a cushion seat. You're not getting there. You're just not. No. So you feel like you're constantly tensed up. Yeah. And I can only imagine when you got 14 to 16 turns. Yeah. Per course and stuff. You're constantly looking on the,
sweating. It doesn't matter how cold it is, you're sweating. Yeah. So our next race is at the end it depends if we're going to do this next race, but we have one in July in Atlanta here, and it is hot. Yeah. I mean, before that race, I prepare myself by going outside and just going on a run at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, just getting used to the heat. Because even if there might be water.
Do you run with your suit on?
No.
That'd be kind of funny.
I should.
You should.
I'd literally die.
Yeah. Well, you should though. You'd be practiced. That'll be easy afterwards. You know.
Oh God.
Middle of the day. So there comes this redhead running down the street with her uniform.
Preparing. Yeah.
There you go.
One year at that race, a couple of years ago, it was the heat of the day, and I had that stint. I was like, go figure. I'm dying. It is so hot. I could not get myself to calm down. I was like about to start hyperventilating, and I remembered that they put a jug of water in the car for me. So I take a sip. Not only do I then proceed to just choke on it completely, but it's boiling hot. It's things you don't think about. So that whole hose, so the water is actually on my right side, but the hose goes behind the seat and up around here. It's a long freaking hose that you have to grab. You have to get all that water out that's hot to eventually get to the cold water because it's been baking there all day. So there's no luxury.
They got to find a better mousetrap than that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're sitting there sucking out like a little mouse there, you know?
Hard. It's hard. And something else people don't think about is women fits versus men, right? So like when I go into a new racing weekend with a new car, new team, I get nervous because I'm like, am I going to fit in the seat? Because most seats are built for men. So the hips are always a lot more narrow and the top part of it is a lot more wide. Whereas I have big birthing hips, as I like to call them. So I'm like, am I going to fit in the seat? Because, you know, I've got wider hips and a smaller torso up here than men do. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So sometimes you have to shove padding in random places so you're not moving around, because that's what makes you tired in a race is just any sort of movement. Yeah. So random little things people don't think about.
No, you really don't.
Yeah.
How about recovery? What's that like? Like, do you do anything afterwards recovery? Like, is that a big part? How you take care of your body, what you eat, health, all that stuff?
Yep. So I work closely with a nutritionist. And
really, racing a car, you still need a nutritionist.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Because you're burning so much, and I like race weekends even more because I get to eat a lot more food, a lot more carbs, I should say. She's like, bagel this morning for breakfast. You know, anything with carbs, and I'm like, hell yeah, let's
pizza,
race
baby.
more.
Pizza.
Exactly.
Give me a...
Exactly. So, but again, you don't want to eat heavy like pizza or burgers because then you get in the car and you're sweating. You just feel like blah, you know. So. It's all.
I'd be in trouble anyways because I'm just an Italian. I sweat anyways.
Yeah, exactly. So. Exactly. So it just, every little thing goes into it. After I get out the car, I just want to sit down for a minute because normally my hips are on fire because the way a lot of German cars are. So you can't feel it in a street car, but the pedals are off-centered in the race car. So where your body is sitting, you can't shift your body like you could in a normal street car because that would, you know, make things not comfortable. So you have to literally move your whole legs over to the side and try to touch your pedals. So that whole 3 hours, your hip bones are placed in such an awkward position. So by the time I pull myself out and help my co-driver get in, I'm like limping back around. Like I just need to sit for a second.
Give me a chiropractor.
Yeah,
a couple
exactly.
adjustments.
Yep. So just sit, drink a lot of water, and I have a suction cup I put on my shoulders where my belts hit because I have bruises after race weekend from the belts.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So what's the worst scenario you've been in driving? The worst scenario, and you knew it was happening, you couldn't stop.
I have had a really bad accident in 2017. And lucky for me, I don't remember it. So it knocked me out cold, broke my ribs, the seat. I basically hit a wall on a corner. Something broke on the rear of the car. And basically I cornered the wall and a barrel rolled 8 times at 120 miles per hour. And every time it landed 8 times on the driver's side. And I didn't know what was going on at this time.
What kind of car were you driving?
It was a Honda Civic.
Oh, wow.
But basically the bolts broke from under the seat and it shifted my head out the window. So I'm being a little dramatic, but the seat was definitely getting hit every time it slammed on the ground. So like I said earlier, for me to even be alive after some of these accidents is pretty crazy.
It's kind of when you know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing too.
Yeah,
though.
yeah, wearing safety. Yeah, exactly. Taking safety seriously, and some people don't, which is so dumb, because I'm like, look at what happened to me. If I didn't have everything on properly, like I would not be here. Yeah. So I remember the feeling of my spine compressing when I was hitting the ground. And I remember waking up or hearing someone yelling, "We have to cut her out of the car." And when you hear someone saying they have to cut the car, that means they have to cut the roll cage off, basically take the roof off the car and get the driver out. But as a driver, you hear that and you instantly know that's going to total loss the car. I couldn't afford that at the time. Little did I know the car was already completely destroyed. But I woke up and they're like, trying to calm me down because I'm like in a panic because I see the windshield smashed in. I don't know what just happened. I hear them saying they have to cut me out, and I pull myself out of the car, and they're like yelling at me because they don't know if my back's broken. They don't know if my neck is broken.
Sure, adrenaline took over.
Yep, exactly. And I pull myself out, and then I pass out again, which was perfect because they can just pull me out and get me on the ambulance and out. So it's weird how that stuff works. Like my mind woke up because I heard that, and then as soon as I got myself out, I passed out again. It's weird.
Did that ever slow you down? Did you have second thoughts about racing again, or what?
It slowed me down financially more than anything. So I was out of the race car for about another year, which that whole time was like the most depressed I've ever been because I'm like, I really ruined that, even though car broke. Like it really wasn't even my fault, but I was in the car at the time. And then you start going into those dark, depressing thoughts of, I can't drive well because like, will I ever drive again? Then I'm recovering from ribs that were broken, things like that. And, I got back in the car and was faster than I've ever been because I just had all this pent up energy. And I was just like, it's now or never. Right. And sure enough, that next year I, podiumed in MX5 Cup. So things happen for a reason, I guess, and made it that much sweeter.
That's right. Do you have any regrets, driving stuff? Like, what would you say be your worst regret? I maybe not
don't think
finding Tommy and choking him.
Yeah.
Was
exactly.
it Tommy, right?
I have had some really crappy things happen in racing, but I will always choke it up as to being a learning experience and watching my back more now. And I think all of that happened. Sure, it sucked, but now I know to watch out for that in the future to not have it happen again, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So some sort of silver lining out of it.
Sure. What do you tell little girls out there today that want to be a race car driver, want to be just like you?
Yeah.
How do they get started? What should they do?
It takes a lot of work, and it's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. If you crash, you got to get back up and get going if that's what you really want to do. If that's what you really want to do, you have to keep pushing. You have to keep believing in yourself because that's what it really took me, and it still does. Like sometimes I'm like, why do I do this? Then I'm like, oh, because as soon as I hit the throttle, leaving pit lane, I'm like, oh my God, this feeling is so awesome. Like it's that, and honestly, I would even say to the parents, like, don't make your kids feel like they can't do something. Because if it wasn't for my parents, I would not be here today.
There you go.
So it's a lot of parents too.
Amen to that. Tell the viewers right before we go, and I got to tell you, I appreciate you coming here, sharing some great information with us. Where they can find you, where they can follow you and support you, and stuff. I mean, you got to have some cool gear and stuff like that. Is there anything you got they can buy and purchase and help you out?
We actually just are about to launch a new T-shirt for our new Audi R8, so it's got like this cool design. But my website, sararacing.com, SARAH racing.com, and then I'm on social media too. Pretty much Sarah Montgomery Racing. You can find me on all social media. I'm there.
There you go. What does Sarah look like 3-5 years from now? What are some of your goals? What do you got in mind? What is one thing that you want to accomplish and do?
I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but I just want to be in a race car. As I'm getting older, it's getting harder to find money, and because my season this year probably cost me about $250 to $300,000. And that's getting harder and harder and harder to find from sponsors. So my goal is just to keep my butt in a race car.
Yeah, there you have it. Yep. Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode of WamBams Podcast. And as you can see, if you're determined about doing something, you want to do something, go after it. Don't let anything stop you from it. Not mom, not dad, not anybody. And as WamBam always says, if your life was a movie, would it be worth watching? And if the answer is no, then stop being ordinary and start being extraordinary. Till next Wednesday, as always, baby, stay positive and keep testing negative. I'm your boy Wham Bam, and I'm out. This podcast was brought to you by Cost Plus Processing, the leader in merchant processing. Call 1-855-391-9190 and find out why they are the future.